If I asked you to name 3 superheroes right now, I bet you could name 10. Even if you aren't into the whole superhero thing, I bet you could do at least 5. That's how saturated our environment is with the superhero concept. Now what if I asked you to name your 3 biggest real-life heroes? Most people, when questioned, tend to name notable figures in history, like the Reverend King, Gandhi, or even FDR. These individuals have a larger-than-life persona, not unakin to that of fictional superheroes. Others might name famous actors or musicians, or pioneers in their vocational fields of choice as their heroes. I would say the same applies in most of these cases. And as for your answer, if you have one, hold on to it for just a minute. See, one of my first heroes, so to speak, was The Rock. Not the actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but the professional wrestler, The Rock, the people's champ. As a kid, I wanted to grow up to be just like The Rock. He was big and strong and went out of his way to help those in need, inside the ring at least, the squared circle. In my eyes, he was a true hero. That is, until one fateful day in November of 1998 when The Rock did something unthinkable. He went corporate. That's right, one of the biggest good guy wrestlers of the era went bad guy. He joined a bad guy organization headed by longtime bad guy and WWE, then WWF owner Vince McMahon. The corporation. The people's elbow had become the corporate elbow. I know now that this is what is called a heel turn, when a beloved wrestler goes from a good guy to a bad guy, usually in some dramatic betrayal during a match. I didn't know this at the time though. I bought the kayfabe, hook, line, and sinker, baby. I was a mark, as they say. I was also like 9 years old, so whatever. My point is that this was the first time I had this experience, the loss of a hero. All the valor, the bravery, the laurels, tarnished by a single negative action. This isn't the way all heroes fall, but it does happen often. There's even that quote from one of the Batman movies. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. There are a lot of other ways to lose a hero though, and I want to talk about some of them. What are the qualities that make a hero anyway? What does it take to make someone no longer a hero? Is having a hero even important or useful? And do I still get to go on my hero's journey? I'm Jourdain, and this is See For Yourself. Alright, before we dive into the boring philosophical shit, let's do our homework and check out some classic origin stories. The word hero as we use it today, in English, comes from the ancient Greek heros. Now this word itself actually has 2 primary definitions. The first refers to the mortal offspring made as the result of a human and a god, you know, getting it. Think figures like Heracles/Hercules. The second, which still kind of includes Heracles depending on who you ask, refers specifically to local figures who had died and were usually buried nearby. These local figures were the subject of worship for so-called hero cults. During this time, you had one of the earliest and probably most extreme examples of a local celebrity or hometown hero. Basically, when a person had done something noteworthy like founding the town, winning a battle, or fending off a wild animal or attack, they would develop a sort of mythical status within the community. They would become a celebrity, a hero. When this person died, the townspeople would form local cults around these figures and their tombs. This wasn't necessarily religious per se, as these people didn't believe the heroes were now gods. They believed that the spirit of the hero resided locally, near the tomb and community, and would grant protection and favors to those who worshiped them after their passing. These hero cults were a massive spiritual element in ancient Greece, with communities all over the territory having their own unique sects dedicated to the local heroes who had served those particular areas. An interesting note is that in addition to hero cults, there were also a number of heroine cults, not the drug, during this time, or sects formed around local women who had done heroic or notable acts. These humans, worshipped with a reverence just a few rungs down from the gods, would even begin to get their own mythological tales. Fantastical retellings of heroic escapades would eventually be made into sprawling epics like the Iliad and the Odyssey. At the same time, other ideas of idols and heroes were forming in other parts of the world. People were gaining notoriety in Africa, the Middle and Far East, and in the Americas. Human beings were being revered in stories, strangers gathering around a fire at night to hear the tales of their triumphs. So, the concept of the hero was born. And it's interesting that in the case of hero cults, at the very beginning, part of what we see in a hero is the ability to do something that we cannot. People gathered at the tombs of dead heroes and asked them to solve problems that they were unable to. This idea is something I think we still see in our heroes, partially at least. If you're someone who really tries to follow in their hero's footsteps, you might just see what they did as inspiration. Either way, the hero has to have done something presumably difficult to gain the initial admiration and the subsequent inspiration. Alright, I know this is getting boring, but stay with me here. I really want to begin to form a shared understanding of what a hero is before we move forward. From this classic definition, we can begin to assume a few things. A hero is a normal human person who has accomplished one or more great feats in their life. Now, I think it's safe to assume we can drop the classical part about the person being dead, buried in a town, and worshipped by the townspeople. However, we can keep the part where they are revered by their people, even if those people aren't necessarily locals and neighbors in modern times. Speaking of modern times, let's speed things up here just a bit. We can now take these older ideas and put them together with what we already know about the idea of having a hero. Like I said before, one of my first heroes was a pro wrestler. He wasn't from my town, and he didn't kill a bear or build a school. But he was a good guy in the world of wrestling who was jacked and could do a neat trick with his eyebrow. And since I was a child who wanted to be a wrestler when I grew up, he was my hero. This type of hero is probably the most common. When I asked you earlier if you had a real-life personal hero, assuming you didn't pick some random good guy historical figure, or some figure from your personal life like a parent or a teacher, my guess is you picked someone notable from a community you are a part of or aspire to be a part of. If you're a musician or just a huge music fan, maybe you picked a famous musician. If you're an athlete or a sports fan, maybe you picked a championship athlete, or even someone who overcame physical adversity to play. These, to me, are the modern version of local heroes. Figures within larger communities that have achieved success or done notable things in that arena. Of course, even within this, you still have local idols. When we go to visit my mother-in-law, we pass by the log cabin where Abraham Lincoln was born. The original Lincoln logs. The good stuff. And the people there, they take a lot of pride in that. I'm sure that whenever LeBron James goes back to Akron, he's treated like royalty. I once met a girl on MySpace who lived in the town in New Jersey where Ray Liotta grew up, and she literally wouldn't talk about anything else. Point being, people still love their actual local heroes. But the adoration of these figures is no longer limited to those we share a locale with. Anyway, I think we have all the basis we need to move on. To have a hero is to have chosen a figure of adoration and admiration. In them, you place your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, your pride, confidence, and loyalty. They serve as an effigy, not to be burned, but to model yourself after. In the year of our Lord 2023, there are no shortage of these figures, relatively speaking. Thousands of former and current pro athletes, young upstart politicians and business people, musicians, actors, and artists of all varieties. 5,000 solid years, give or take, of historic and religious figures, saints and good Samaritans, kings and conquerors. Whatever you personally look for in a hero, someone out there had or has it. Here's the thing though, I don't have any heroes. Truly, none. Not anymore that I can think of. Now sure, there are people I admire. There are people who have qualities that I would like to emulate. My mom, for example, is one of the kindest, most selfless people I've ever met. I would be lucky to have half of her good qualities. But I don't want to be exactly like my mom. My mom has her own shortcomings, her own way of looking at the world. I admire my mom. If I had a hero, she would be it. However, if I'm answering honestly, based on our understanding of the word hero up to this point, I would still say that I don't actually have a hero. There are a few reasons for this, and we can go over each of them. But first, I want to talk about the last hero I had before the idea became lost on me. His name was Subway Jared Fogle, and his journey of weight loss via submarine sandwiches... I'm just kidding. No, really, the last actual hero I ever had really was Abraham Lincoln, right up until I was about 12. No kidding this time. I wasn't particularly political as a kid, but even at that age I didn't fool with racist nonsense, and from what I knew about Lincoln, he freed the slaves, provoked the racist South, and made them look like chumps, and then died for what he believed in. A true hero and a martyr. Plus, like I said, he was born in my home state. Of course, at some point during or around the age of 12, I read a bit more thorough of a biography about Lincoln. I don't remember the exact title, but the information in it is widely known to people over the age of 12. Suffice to say, the bits where he said if he could preserve the Union without freeing a single slave he would, the parts where he was a bit of a recovering racist himself, and the overall, true nuanced character of a person like old Abe, had me rethinking what I expected from my heroes. After all, I think it's fair to say that as far as presidents go, he probably had a larger hand in doing general good than most. However, like all human beings, he was flawed. And these flaws in my adolescent brain brought him down a peg or two, below gods, demigods, superheroes, and heroes, to regular human. A lot of what I would call middle school history heroes kind of have the same quality. When you are young, you learn about and see only the great accomplishments of these figures. When you grow older and say more particular, you begin to see the areas where they lacked. I think the idolization of any kings, conquerors, presidents, politicians, or any of the like are a bit juvenile anyway. But even among other figures, flaws do arise. Gandhi, for example, notably held many racist, misogynistic, and even classist beliefs. He also did that weird thing where he loved to sleep in bed with young girls just to prove to himself that he had a strong will or whatever. Anyway, freak show stuff aside, people can have flaws. So can't our heroes? I guess it depends on what you want in a hero. Going by the standards we've already set though, that line does begin to get a little clearer. Remember, a hero isn't just someone who has done great things. They are also someone who you put your faith and trust into to do good things in the future. But with people and all things being some shade of gray rather than black and white, how can we have this trust? Is it possible to separate the art from the artist, or in many cases the hero from the heroic deeds? Speaking of artists, let me tell you about some of my favorite artists from different mediums whom I've admired at different times in my life, and with whom I had to test the question of whether I could separate them from their art. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the flaws in these individuals are, but if you don't already know and really want to, please pause the video at your leisure and head on over to Google. I do trust that it's worth a Google. I just want to keep this section brief. If you had asked me at any point before 2017 to name my top 5 bands, the Long Island emo outfit, Brand New, would have made that list somewhere. Even with what singer Jesse Lacey did aside, I can now see that a lot of their lyrics were a bit toxic at best and pretty fucked up at worst, but you know, that was emo. If you had asked me the same question about comedians, say, before 2017, Dave Chappelle would have made that list. And I'm not as alone on this as I was on the Brand New thing. If you were a 15 to 30-year-old comedy fan in the era of the Chappelle Show, especially a male comedy fan, I guarantee Dave was one of your favorite comedians too. Again, I don't think I have to say why these artists are flawed, in my eyes. Which brings me to my last example. If you had asked me that same question about, say, authors before 2017. Hold on, let me tell you why 2017. I spent my entire 20s either completely messed up out of my mind, in jail, or in rehab, right up until 2017. So for all intents and purposes, at age 28, when I started over, I was politically, socially, and economically illiterate, and I had to catch up pretty quickly. Back to the point though, if you had asked me my top 5 favorite authors, the now infamous J.K. Rowling would have made that list. I honestly don't think I need to say much more. You get the point. I was, of course, one of those gigantic, insufferable Harry Potter nerds everyone knows. I even got a goddamn Harry Potter tattoo, which I will be getting covered up at some point this year. And there, I think, is a major issue. I trusted so much, admired and idolized with such intensity that I got Harry Potter fucking branded on my skin. And now I feel I have to cover it up because my heroes have all failed me. So what? Will all heroes inevitably fail? If they live long enough, will they eventually become villains? Take that dreaded heel turn. While I would cautiously say no, that is not always necessarily the case, the truth is, it does tend to happen more often than not. We choose our heroes in other human beings, and human beings are flawed. Even heroes in the realms of sci-fi, mythology, fantasy, comic books, and the like all eventually take a heel turn, even if it's brief or under the influence of some spell or alien mind control. It seems to be built into the archetype of the hero to fall from grace. Though this turn should now be expected with how prevalent it is in our idols, it still seems to come as a surprise to the pseudo-hero cults that form around these famous figures. I think the reason for this comes from another one of the qualities heroes have that is also a top grievance I have with the concept of heroes in general. That being, society has developed what I like to call waiting on a hero syndrome. Despite the fact that they will imminently fail us, we have come to place all our hope and confidence in the external hero. In superhero culture, folks in regular human society rarely act themselves to thwart danger, because they are incapable, at least compared to the superpowered heroes and their villainous counterparts. What is the point in trying to do anything when you're fighting against a Green Goblin and you're not Spider-Man? The problems that plague civilization are made to feel massive, outside of our perception and outside of our control. Thusly, the solutions to these problems vis-a-vis heroes are also massive and outside of us and our control. So we are paralyzed, unable or unwilling to act. We do not have the capabilities to handle problems as large as the ones in front of us, so we do nothing. but sit back and wait on a hero. The problems of crime are too big. Let the police handle it. The cities are falling apart. Let the government handle it. When my favorite musician comes out with a new album, it will make me feel better. If movies and art were good again, things would improve. We wait on our heroes to save us from the woes of this world. But our heroes aren't coming. To really go for the overkill when it comes to our understanding of the hero concept, I want to go just a bit further into what really makes a hero. How and under what circumstances did these individuals rise to their greatness, accomplish their great deeds of heroism, and gain notoriety for doing so? In order to answer these questions, we're going to talk about the hero's journey. Now, I am not personally interested in the Joseph Campbell analysis or the monomyth idea. I don't plan on getting into the Jungian/Freudian psychology that influences that line of thinking either, though I will loosely use the term archetype on occasion to describe what we call a hero, being as we want to form a cohesive, semi-universal understanding of the concept as a whole. I am really only interested in the hero's journey as it relates to storytelling. After all, what are heroes but the main character in a narrative we are told, or tell ourselves? And this doesn't just apply to heroes from historical stories and fictional books, but the heroes from real life as well. Whatever it is a person has accomplished that makes them worthy of adoration, it is acknowledged 9 times out of 10 in the form of a story about the person or a particular deed they have done. So let's get into the hero's journey and the stories told using it. Again, speaking loosely, the hero's journey is a format for a story in which a character is placed to fill the role of the hero. The journey comes in stages, but basically, our protagonist starts out as a relatively normal person. Some sort of trigger event happens in their life and they are forced to start out on some sort of quest or adventure. During this quest, our hero will incur some sort of training to help them, usually, but not always, from a mentor. In many tales, the mentor could be thought of as the hero from an older story. Remember that part because I think it's important. At some point, the character will embark out on their own to achieve victory over some antagonistic force. Sometimes this force is an inner conflict that must be overcome. In any case, it is here that our hero will have to face some sort of test: betrayal, ambush, loss, emotional agony, depleted stamina, or ability. Inevitably, though, our hero will come out the other side with a new resolve and having learned something important about themselves. After this, our hero will accomplish their mission and return home to receive the appropriate praise and prizes, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be heroes. This is a very simplified, diluted version of the format, but if you start making the connections, you will see how often it is applied, especially in the cases of our biggest heroes from our favorite stories. Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, Odysseus, Superman, Batman, Harry Potter, Homer, Gilgamesh, fucking Ray Charles, Madonna, Frida Kahlo. The biggest known heroes in all of popular culture have been on this journey in some form. Though it is a stretch to apply it to all cultures, religions, myths, and spiritual stories, elements of this can be seen to apply to a number of them. Similar principles show up in popular understandings of the zodiac and astrology, notably in the tarot and the Fool's Journey. This tale, this journey, these principles, they are, whether we know it or not, the foundation for what we look for in our heroes. The reasons that we have them, why we cling to them so desperately, even when they make that dreaded heel turn. Now, I know it seems like I'm just shitting on heroes, being pessimistic, willfully negative, or obstinate, but that's just because I think we are looking at this whole hero thing simply wrong. Let's take the Fool's Journey in the tarot, for instance. I'm going to try to keep this point brief as well so I can start to wrap things up, but I do kind of want to make a longer video in the future about the Fool's Journey, so let me know if you think that would be cool. From what I understand about the tarot and why it's useful, The fool's journey isn't supposed to represent some external character for you to look to for guidance. It's supposed to represent you, or at least some element of your life based on the reading. See, the story and the principles and themes it represents aren't just about divination, fortune-telling, or some other woo-woo stuff. It's supposed to be a sort of universal representation of strategies and self-growth concepts that can apply to you personally at a given point on your journey. The reason I use tarot to make this example is because it's easy to see how the story changes each time. Each new reading is a new journey, with new opportunities for reflection and self-determination. The whole idea is basically this. The hero or fool's journey isn't supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime accomplishment. You're supposed to do it over and over and over again. As the hero, you are to undertake quest after quest, never stopping to rest on your laurels. The reason our heroes fail us, turn heel, and become villains is because they only take the one journey. They only do the one heroic deed and then they come home to be praised for the rest of their lives and after, theoretically. Sure, it could be argued that in the modern superhero tales, the heroes continue fighting villain after villain, accomplishing deed after deed. But I would say that just strengthens my point, which is actually 2 points. The hero is never supposed to stop growing, achieving, and being generally heroic. And you are actually the hero. The journey isn't just an archetype for storytelling, nor are the stories told with it just for entertainment. The reason we have myths, stories of heroes, and icons to admire isn't to become carbon copies of the hero, but to apply their story to your own life. Now, I sometimes struggle with self-confidence, and I try my best to be humble and modest, and I think arrogance is a terrible trait to have. Keep that in mind when I say, I am my own hero. I'm on my own journey, and there is no person I relate to more than myself. When I am in doubt, I know exactly what I can achieve because I know myself. And I know myself because I have taken the journey. I take it every time I need to. Now look, this is not a call to get you to look at me or anyone else as your hero, and I hope that's pretty obvious. It is a call to kill your heroes, all of them, because they're standing in your way of taking your own journey, becoming your own hero. Sure, you can use them as inspiration when you need to, and oftentimes good heroes will show up to be the mentor in our journey. It is okay to admire people, pick up good qualities and habits from them. It's fine to use aspects of a person as the vision for something you want to become. However, you should never begin to idolize or worship another human being. Even if you become your own hero, live within your own story, you may still fail yourself. You may become a villain or a heel. But the great thing about being in your own story is that you can just use that as another test of character, another opportunity to grow, another new journey. Obviously, I think that aspects of the hero's journey, heroic figures, and the heroes we have for ourselves can be useful. I do think that applying general positive personality characteristics and moral principles to varying aspects of your life can have a good effect. I take inspiration from a lot of places, something you can learn more about over on my Patreon. So here's the situation. I'm just your average guy, normal fella, regular run-of-the-mill jerk-off. I work a regular job and I make these videos in my free time. If you like them at all, you want to see more of them, or see me release them more frequently, I humbly suggest you consider subscribing to my Patreon. But this is a reciprocal relationship, baby, so here's what you'll be getting in return. The first 100 episodes of my podcast, The Obscure Curio, which you will not find anywhere else, exclusive and early episode access to the rebirth of said podcast coming in June, exclusive and early video access for this channel, The Obscure Curio, and short films from Empty Path Productions, Discord access, patron appreciation, DNA samples, and more. If that interests you at all, or you are simply dying to part with $1 to $10 a month,
head on over to patreon.com/Jourdain Edmondson, link in the description, to support all of my creative endeavors. That's patreon.com/Jourdain Edmondson. Thank you kindly. Back to the video.
Well, I guess I'm trying to make a less cheesy version of this point. Be your own hero. Like really though, external heroes are outside of our control and they will always fail us. That doesn't make them bad people or actual villains, but it dilutes what we can achieve with them as our icons. When we fail ourselves though, we can actually take that chance to make sure it doesn't happen again. We have control over that. You won't get to choose your call to adventure and when or why you will take the journey into the depths of your own personality. But you can use the tools provided to become your own hero through your own adversities. Now this isn't some grand, you can achieve anything no matter where you come from, appeal to the sheer power of will. Sometimes your adversaries will win. Sometimes there is no easy escape from a bad situation. But that doesn't mean you can't still be the hero in that tale. It's alright if you still have an external hero. It's fine if you think that none of what I said even makes sense. I just hope that the next time you have an opportunity, you take that journey. The next time you get the chance to see if there really is a hero in you, I hope you go see for yourself.